If you have heard anything about Irish single pot still whiskey, you've heard of these. These are going to be the ones everyone knows about, Redbreast and Green Spot. And they are good whiskies, don't get me wrong. They win loads and loads of awards because they are fantastic whiskies. Does that mean they're the only single pot still whiskey on the market? Absolutely not. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and I'm going to be telling you today about 5 of what I think are great Irish single pot still whiskies that are very widely available on the market, and some of which are just as good as these whiskies. This here is, of course, the classic Redbreast 12-year-old Irish whiskey. Comes in at 40% alcohol by volume, but it does have a good bit of flavour. Nice age statement. It's bourbon, it's sherry, it's Christmas spices and toffee and caramelized fruits, and just a really lovely little whiskey. This one here, of course, Green Spot, also single pot still, also coming from the same distillery, but the combination of bourbon and sherry barrels here and the way they make it brighter, fresher, fruitier, more vanilla, green apple, those kind of notes. And that's why these two whiskies typically clean up at awards. But I'd say with all the new distilleries in Ireland, we're going to be seeing way more of the different whiskies, different single pot still whiskies coming up in the next few years. And I'm going to start off with this one right here, the new Dingle single pot still Irish whiskey. This here was just released by Dingle like a couple of weeks ago. This is, well, their own single pot still whiskey. Dingle have been around for about 12 years or so. They've been making single pot still whiskey for a little bit less than that, let's say about a decade or so. And so this here is a non-age statement, but it's a fairly decently aged whiskey, probably around the 7 or the 8 years old in that bottle right here. It is a nice whiskey coming in at 46.5% alcohol by volume, so it's a nice bit of weight, and because it is single pot still, it has a bit of like oiliness and character to it that just helps to deliver a lot of flavour. Dingle, for their mash bill, for their single pot still mash bill, they use 60% malted barley and 40% unmalted barley. So because in single pot still whiskey you are allowed to play around with different grains. You have to use at least 30% malted, at least 30% unmalted, and at most 5% other grains under the rules as they are today. So some distilleries go down the middle 50-50, some go 60-40, some go 40-60, some like add in the 5% of other grains, or they might add only in 1% of other grains, and they just play around to achieve different flavours. But that's not the only thing you can do, because Dingle have used 4 different casks. They actually do nicely lay it out here on the bottle, because this here is not a whiskey that was aged in bourbon and then finished in a different cask. This here is a marriage of 4 different whiskies that were all aged entirely in different casks to really seal in all that flavour. So we have 59% of it was in bourbon cask, 33% was in Oloroso sherry cask, 4% was in PX sherry cask, and 4% was in red wine cask. And this here is just lovely. It's bright, a little bit floral, a little bit minty. It has a lovely kind of character to it, and when you go in for the taste on it, that red wine influence, even though there's only 4% of it, that red wine influence does kind of come through, especially into the finish, with some nice red wine tannins. Next up, I am going to go back to Irish Distillers, but just for a little bit. Irish Distillers is the brand that makes Redbreast and Green Spot, and they also make Powers. And this right here is the Powers John's Lane cask strength. So the regular Powers John's Lane, it has a 12-year-old age statement like the Redbreast 12, but it comes in at 46% alcohol by volume and has a different kind of cask maturation profile. This here is a whopper though. It comes in at 57.8% alcohol by volume. Different batches might have a little bit up, a little bit down on that alcohol, but you're going to be getting about 60%, 58.5 to 60% alcohol by volume in this lovely 12-year-old single pot still Irish whiskey. And when I first tried this, I was actually like, well, what's the point of having a cask strength Powers John's Lane? Because I really am a big fan of that 12-year-old John's Lane. I think it's a really lovely whiskey. It arrived, it was brand new, but it just felt like a classic whiskey that had been around for a while. And I thought that this cask strength was just a bit of a gimmick, but it has grown on me. Over the course of the last little while, I've been drinking it slowly, having sips of it because it is nice and strong. And it has this lovely, it's like everything that was in the Powers John's Lane just turned up an extra notch, just giving it more flavour, more weight. more character. If you are familiar with those Redbreast and Green Spots, you may have heard about the Paris John's Lane, and this here is something you might not have seen or you might not have tried yet, the cask strength version. If you do like cask strength whiskies, if you do like stronger whiskies, or if you want to try out a good cask strength whiskey, this one would be a good one to go for, because a lot of people talk about the Redbreast 12 cask strength, but in my mind, the John's Lane cask strength is as good, if not better. And now to go back to a smaller distillery that's been around for a while, kind of like the idea of that Dingle distillery, Teeling. This is their own single pot still Irish whiskey. This here is entirely aged by Teeling. It is their own whiskey. This here, it comes in at 46% alcohol by volume, classic bourbon and sherry, and their mash bill is 50-50 down the middle. So it is actually a little bit less floral than the Dingle, which has a lot more malted barley and less unmalted. But here it's just a nice, sweet, spicy whiskey. Like Teeling have been around for a while now. They have it here on it. They were reborn in 2012. That's 13 years ago now. And they've been around for a while making good whiskey, and they've got good whiskies that they've been releasing in kind of like, I guess, stages. They've got like ones that were all aged in red wine, kind of like what Dingle are doing, all aged in PX, or there's one with a chestnut wood finish. Really, really nice kind of special casks that they've been trying out, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of years we'll see an age statement Teeling single pot still, because I think they are making great stuff. Some of their special editions, like the single casks, whether it was finished in a fun type of wood or a fun type of, like they did one in Chinkapin oak, which is the American type of oak, really gave it a different kind of unique flavor. And they've got obviously ones that they did in, I think they did a cherry wood one that wasn't released, but I did get to try a bit of it once, and just lovely different kind of experiments. I know Teeling are like a big company, they're kind of a corporate company, they want to make sure what they're doing is great, but if you can ever get any of their special edition kind of once-off bottlings, those are really worth trying. But today we're talking about stuff that's all available on the shelf. This is available on the shelf, this is available on the shelf. Those special editions aren't always available on the shelf, but this one here is, and it is a lovely little good example of a classic single pot still. And now I'm going to clear a bit of space up here because I've got my fourth bottle coming up. This here, Writer's Tears. Writer's Tears is a brand well known for their blend. So they make a blended whiskey that is a blend not of single pot still and grain, but of single malt and single pot still. So they call it like the champagne blend, where it's not using any grain whiskey, which can sometimes be, a little bit maligned, but sometimes it's also not as well made as like a good single malt or a good single pot still. This here is though purely single pot still Irish whiskey. It has a really nice kind of bottle to it, and it does tell you like a little bit of information about it, because here we have, grain types, barley, triple distilled, PX and Marsala casks. They use European oaks, and it just gives you a little bit of good information about it. Also does come in at 46% alcohol by volume, whereas the regular Writer's Tears does come in only at 40%. So this here has a little bit of a step up and a little bit of extra weight. And yeah, like the lovely, like that PX sherry, if you ever try PX sherry, it has this almost syrupy, dense, sugary, stewed fruits flavor to it. But this here, it's lightened up by the Marsala wine. Like Marsala wine, quite sweet, almost like zesty lime citrus flavors can be given to a whiskey. So here you got those deeper kind of PX sherry notes. You got the lighter notes from that Marsala cask, and then you got underneath it all like that peppery pot still spice. That's just a really nice classic whiskey. Writer's Tears are a distillery, the Walsh distillery, but the brand Writer's Tears has been around for a long time, and it often flies under the radar because they've got that blended product that everyone knows about, but they've just been making some great stuff, whether it's this here or the Irishman, which is like their single malt. It also has a blend of malt and pot still, but the Irishman has a single malt. The Writer's Tears has a single pot still, both from the Walsh distillery, both from the same company, but just different kind of brands. It's just a really nice, I think, really well made pot still whiskey that does fly under the radar, but for me, it is very, very nice. And now, for the last one, I'm actually going to show you 3 different whiskies, all from Boan. So this here is the Boan single pot still kind of range. It has this one here, which is a lovely one, as you can see. I've enjoyed a lot of it. It was aged in a Madeira cask. This one here was aged in a Marsala cask. They both come in at 47% alcohol by volume. It's got a really nice, well-made bottle to it, but the point of it is the whiskey. This here is lovely, it's bright, it's fresh, it's sweet. This one here, again, a little bit almost like deeper, but still quite sweet. But for me, the Marsala, the Madeira, they kind of fade in behind my favorite, the PX Sherry. This one here, if you're going to pick one of the three, I would say to get this one. If you can, try them all, but for me, this one here is the best. A PX Sherry cask for me gives a lot of flavor, like I said here, with that Rider's Tears. The PX Sherry just gives it a lovely flavor, and with the spiciness of the single pot still, with that syrupy, fruity, stewed fruits flavor of the PX Sherry, it just makes for a lovely whiskey. And this one here is definitely nice. Now it is, I would say, probably the youngest whiskey on the table. I mean, this here is 12 years old. This here is like, I think 5 or 6. This here again, that's 6 or 7, maybe a 7 or 8. This one here is about 3.5 to 4 years old. So it isn't very old, because Boan has only been around for about 5 years now, and they've only been kind of making stock in like mass bulk for a few years now. So this here is on the younger side, but it is a core product. So as the kind of bottlings go on, that age I think is going to creep up. So it's, let's say, 3.5 to 4 years now, maybe about 5 years by the time this video's come out, because this here, I did buy it a while ago, so it's probably been aged up a little bit by some other releases now. But I'd say in the next few years, we're going to see like 5-year-old and 6-year-old. We probably will see an age statement release from Boan with their own stock, and I'm looking forward to getting that, because they are one of the distilleries, I think they're the only one on the table here that actually uses other grains. You could actually say it here on the table. It's a mixed mash bill of malted barley, unmalted barley, oats and rye. And I think it's, off the top of my head, I think it's 3.75% oats and 1.25% rye, or the other way around. There's a combination there of different grains in there, which I think is really great, because again, like I said, you are allowed to use other grains in pot still, and they are using it, and it is a core product that you can find kind of anywhere good Irish whiskey is sold. So if you do want to try out a little bit of an experiment with that mixed mash bill, but an experiment that works, the Boan PX Sherry, definitely worth trying. And that's all I think from me. Like I said, these are for me 5 fantastic little whiskies that are widely available on most shelves, and that do taste nice. If you've got any other ideas for good Irish single pot still whiskies that are widely available, let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. I said, I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd. I put out whiskey reviews every Wednesday, I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey every Friday, and every now and then on a Monday I put out whiskey videos like this, where I talk about the industry, I talk about different styles of whiskey, whiskies that might go under the radar but are definitely worth trying out. So if you want to see more like that, make sure you hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.